Okay, so today, so we were walking, and then we knocked on a couple of houses, and the first one we knocked on, there was this woman, and she said that she had a cold and stuff. So she was like, "Oh well, we can't talk, 'cause she had a cold." And so then we offered to pray, and she was like, "No." And then so we left, and then we went to another person's house, and they were just saying, this one guy was like, "I already go to church." So we asked him where. He was like, "Oh, well, you know," and no, he didn't even know where it was or what it was called. So then this one person, we were telling them that we were from YWAM and that we were just going out to tell people about Jesus. He was like, "Oh yeah, I know him." And then so we were asking if we could still like share the story of the book and stuff, and he was like, "No, it's okay." And so then we were walking again, and we were split up. It was me and Becky, and then Sierra and the other girl on the separate sides. So then we get to this one door, and we knock on it, and this really old woman comes to the door, and she has like two dogs. She has like this little dog and this really big dog. And so she comes to the door, and we tell her that we're from YWAM and that we're just walking around to tell people about Jesus. And then we asked her if we could share the story, and she was like, "Oh no, that's okay, because my dogs don't really do well with company." And then she mentioned that we could step just in the thing so that way her dogs wouldn't get out or anything. She was like, "Oh no, it's okay, it's okay." She kept saying no. Then she like starts tearing up, and she's saying that her sister, she doesn't keep in touch with her sister anymore because her sister was a Jehovah's Witness, so she cut all of her connection with her family off to do that. And so she was talking about that, and then we were telling her that we weren't Jehovah's Witness, and she said that she knows. And so eventually then like we ask her if we can like just tell her again. She says yeah. So then we step into like the door thing, and then she like takes her boots off and stuff, and then she goes in there to the living room, and the lady's sitting down, and I'm just sitting over here like watching the dog so that way she could talk and stuff. And I was just listening, and she starts with the color gold, and she asked the lady what the color gold, like what she thinks of when she sees it. And the lady doesn't really say anything. I guess she was like thinking of something. And Becky looks at the woman's hand and sees like a gold ring. So she was like, "Oh well, you have a gold ring or whatever." Then she asked if it was her wedding ring, and she mentioned it was her mom's ring and stuff. And then she explained how like gold is like heaven because the streets of gold and stuff. And then the lady like between each thing she started like breaking it off and started talking about her family and stuff like she didn't want to hear like that, so she started talking about herself instead of talking about like the book and stuff. And then she started talking about how she was married 4 times and how the first one beat her, and then her second one took all her kids, and then don't really think she said anything about the third one. But the fourth one, it was like they were not married because like once she would be in the living room, the guy would be in the kitchen, and she would be in the kitchen and the guy would be in the living room. So they were never like in the same place together. So she said that she felt like they weren't married. So she was gonna offer to leave, and the guy ended up leaving. So she starts like breaking it off and telling about like random stuff. So then eventually we get back to the story, and then she breaks off. Then we get to the story, and she breaks off about something. She has a hearing aid in one ear, and she's blind in one of her eyes. So she was talking about how I think one of her daughters lives with her, and a lot of her family has died and stuff, and their other children don't live with her. Then she was talking about how like her daughter calls her stupid because the lady can't hear her sometimes. like you have to speak up. So if she's like focused on something or the television's up and her daughter's talking to her and she can't hear, and she asks her, she's like, well, why are you so stupid? And her daughter's always like putting her down and calling her stupid and saying she can't do all this stuff. And then she starts talking about her grandkids. She has two. She calls one Pumpkin and she calls the other one Peanut. I think that they're both of one of her daughter's kids. And actually, Peanut's birthday was today, so they were coming over shortly. And then she starts talking about that, and then eventually we get like back into the stuff, and she mentioned how she used to go to church and she was baptized and stuff, and then she like left church at age 15. Told her mom she didn't want to go anymore because in Sunday school they would like ask all these questions and they would just like talk all the time. So then she just left when she was 15. So eventually we start talking and stuff, and we finally get to all the things except for the grade because that's last. So we get there, and then she asks, Becky asks her, if she wants to pray and stuff and like give her life to God. And the woman's like, oh, well, no, I don't think I can do that because, if my daughter found out, she would like call me stupid and stuff like that. And so then she was saying like, well, they would like, her kids would see the change in her, so then it could like make a change like in her daughter and stuff. And then, we talked some more, and then eventually we kept asking her. Well, one time we asked her, and she was like, oh no, I'll just stay with the life that I have now. I'll just stay with what I have now. And eventually, Sierra and the other girl knocked on the door. So, they came in, sat down, and then she was like, well, I can't do that because my family, and, I'll just stay with what I have. Then the little girl tells the story about her family. Like, she got saved, and her parents were never saved, her sister was never saved. Then they saw the change in her. Her parents are saved now, and her sister is saved, and, like, they're making a better relationship and stuff. So then, eventually we ask her, we're like, well, we can just pray now. And she says, okay. And so then she's like, then she mentioned how she didn't want to pray with all these people here. But then she was like, well, you just have to repeat, after me, and then when you're alone, you can actually, pray for yourself. And so Becky just keeps saying, like, dear God, and she's like waiting for the lady to say something, and the lady, she's sitting there. Like, I don't know if she was singing in her head or something, but she was just sitting there. And so then Becky just kept saying, dear God, and the lady's just sitting there. And so then, like, Becky just, like, reaches her hand out for her, and the lady looks at her and, like, takes her hand, and she was like, can you say it out loud? So then she says, dear God. Then the lady, finally, she's like, dear God. And I was just watching in the back. And so I started crying because after all this time, 82-year-old woman, like, she finally, like, just with the reach of her hand, knowing that we're there for her and that we're going to be there for her, then she finally says, dear God. Then they, like, go on with the rest of the prayer, and she's saying it all out loud. And then she gets to the part, and she's like, when I die, then I'll be with you and stuff. And then, like, the lady says that, and then when they get to the part about how, like, God will be the Savior, and, like, you accept Him, then she starts, like, really crying. The lady starts really crying. So she stops for a second, and then Becky's like, can you feel, because, like, God was there. So she was like, can you feel, and the lady was just crying. And then she stops, so then she says the last part. And then she says amen, the lady says amen. And so then after that, they were, like, asking if she felt anything. And I don't remember her response. I don't think she said anything. But then in the end, we were telling her about, like, her family then we were asking her for her number and stuff, so that way someone could like call, because we were going to find her a church. And then she's like, well, I don't want to go to church. So then we were like, okay. And so they're like, well, if we can just get your number, we can have someone call you, or if we write your address down, we can have someone from the church come over. And at first she was like, well, I don't think that we should do that because my daughter, and I don't really know the times that she's home. So then eventually we get her number, she tells us her number, and she tells us her address and stuff. And then we started talking more about her dogs and her family and stuff. And then eventually we gave hugs and left. So it was the whole time when she was saying her prayer, like seeing God move in her, then I kind of felt God move in me because I was watching it and I was already crying. So then I was like watching her, and then I started like praying myself, like for my own salvation. Not that I'm saying I'm not saved, but I was just, afterwards I was like praying because God kind of moved in me. So it was kind of like, well, this 82-year-old woman is sitting here giving her life to God. So I just felt the need to pray again and give my life to God again, even though I already knew that I was saved, but I did anyways. So it was a good experience. So hopefully we'll go back to her house and just to visit, not to be like, oh, well, we're talking more about God. Like, not saying we can't talk about God, but that way we know that we're not just people that came to her door to tell her, but we're going to be there for her. So we can go check on her, help her with what she needs.